Danny Masterson has been a danger to society. The sitcom legend is about to go on trial for the second time, and he might be hoping for a repeat of the last one because he got off easy the first time.
Your attorneys may appear in court on your behalf without you present.
Yes, Your Honor.
He really did have it easy the last time. We first heard about these allegations back in 2017, and at first, no one really knew what was going on. Masterson went for the age-old tactic, deny, deny, deny. He tried to make it seem like his accusers had it out for him. But that was before the women he heard had their full day in court. When his alleged victims gave their testimony, the whole courtroom went silent. These are not the sorts of things you hear about on a normal day, so most of us were expecting he'd be convicted. Unfortunately, the jurors weren't able to come to a unanimous decision regarding Masterson. There was just too much confusion and not enough evidence. The prosecution will have to come up with a stronger case, and the good news is that they're going to get their chance at a second trial in March. All eyes will be on the 29th of March when the trial is set to begin. And even though it might seem like old news, we should all try to remember his crimes were brutal. Hyde was my absolute fave on that 70s show, and I assumed the actor would be a good guy too.
Ends up, flat on his face, kind of a la Charlie Brown. And so he's been a lot of fun to play. I've never played a character like Milo.
What's more, his violence wasn't a one-off either. It turned out he'd potentially hurt at least 3 women back in the early 2000s. His crimes were so severe that pretty much all of his fans have turned on him, and honestly, I started to hate the guy too. You just don't get to do things like that without facing the consequences. If you've been actively avoiding the details of his crime, I don't blame you. After all, who wants to hear about such horrible things when there's already so much wrong in the world? The thing is, his victims are real people, and he did some truly horrible things to them. One of his victims said that he refused to use protection, saying that transmitted illnesses don't exist. Another of his victims had a gun pointed at her head. So this is clearly not a guy who understands consent. In every case, Masterson used his star power to lure his victims. His former girlfriend, Christina, was just 18 years old when she met him, while Masterson was 21 and already a big celebrity. It's pretty obvious that Masterson liked having power over others, and we can see that in the violence and his crimes. That said, how exactly did he get this much power? We should probably discuss the elephant in the room, a certain religious organization that seems deeply involved in his crimes.
I want us to know, because then we'd buy all the water. Then there'd be nothing left to drink but beer. And the government knows that beer...
It's time to talk about the Church of Scientology. Yep, that church. You might think that the Church of Scientology is just another quirky religion. Their beliefs are pretty sci-fi, and it can be easy to see them as a joke. Some might even say that singling Masterson out for his religious beliefs is discrimination. We beg to differ, though, because the so-called church took every step to protect the alleged rapist. One of Masterson's accusers, referred to as a Jane Doe 1, tried to report him to the church. Any sane person would assume that they'd immediately cut ties with him. But you'll be shocked at what actually happened. It turns out that the church actually convinced her that she was at fault. They even made her complete an ethics program, though it'd make more sense to call it what it is, straight up brainwashing. She then went to the police, only to have the police chief himself call her up and tell her she was absolutely screwed. That's right, the chief of LA Police himself seemed to be in a league with the Church of Scientology. Are you pissed as I am? Well, sit back down because we're nowhere close to the end.
At the foundation of Scientology is the knowledge contained in the complete collection of L. Ron Hubbard's books and recorded lectures. It's a body of work comprising 25 million words on his research and breakthrough discoveries.
In case you were wondering why Jane Doe 1 didn't go to the police first, it's because she was a Scientologist herself. That's actually a recurring theme with all of Masterson's alleged victims. He literally convinced his ex Christina to convert to the religion, probably because he knew it'd give him even more power. The second trial is in a couple of months, and we hope it goes better for the victims this time around. How do Masterson's former co-stars feel about the accusations? None of them have said much until that reboot money loosened Topher's lips. Topher spoke. Topher Grace was the main star of that 70s show, and we were all wondering what he had to say about the whole ordeal. The actor has mostly kept his opinion to himself, apart from a small statement he put out when the allegations first came out. However, he had to break his silence when the spotlight came a-calling. We're living in the age of reboots, and Topher would have lost out on a ton of money if he'd kept his mouth shut. Old Foreplay couldn't resist the easy money that a reboot would send his way, but he had to address the allegations for anything to move forward. At least one of the cast members had to talk about what happened, otherwise the controversy might have scared off the networks. Remember, reboots are only successful if the old show still has fans.
At a party, And I was with a platonic girlfriend of mine. She said, "Oh my God, I have the biggest crush on Seth Meyers." Like, oh my God, I know him. I hosted SNL. I know this guy. So
We'd have preferred it if Topher had spoken out on his own accord, but we were still happy to take whatever we got. Unfortunately, what we got wasn't exactly inspiring. Topher said he ain't seen nothing. You'd have thought that Grace's comments on the issue would be, I don't know, compassionate, sympathetic, human. Maybe we expected too much because Grace didn't mention the victims even once in the interview. Instead, he talked about how he didn't see anything suspicious. To boil it down, Topher basically said that he never went out partying with the rest of the cast. Apparently, he was the boring one of the group, so he usually went home instead. I have a hard time believing that, but maybe I'm just a cynic. Could a guy in his early 20s starring in one of the biggest shows in the world really resist the temptation to party like a celebrity?
and I didn't know the guy, and so I didn't raise my hand. They said, cool. And as this incredibly guilty, like you'd cast him as someone to play guilty in a movie, but he'd look too much like a guilty guy. So
yeah, right.
As he sat down, he went like this.
Topher is clearly trying to distance himself from the situation. I know, that's pretty messed up. We're not arguing with that. After all, what kind of person dismisses such serious allegations just because he didn't see it firsthand? Well, we've got to give him credit for one thing. At least he opened his dang mouth. Some of his co-stars are acting like nothing ever happened, although there's an easy explanation for that. The 90s show and the prospect of a comeback. The 70s show ran for 8 seasons, but most of the cast didn't do anything major after it went off the air. They were never going to starve thanks to those royalty checks, but it must have hurt to be forgotten.
It's really starting to freak me out.
I'd like the legacy to be that people think it was a really good show. For me personally, it's the greatest show of all time, and some moments were so genius that it was unbelievable.
But just know that I'm really lowering my standards.
That makes 2 of us.
All of that's about to change in the streaming era, with Netflix soon releasing a sequel called That 90s Show. This will give the cast a chance to get their lost glory back. There was no chance they'd jeopardize that by commenting on the whole Masterson situation.
Most of us are best friends, and we just kind of grew up together. From me through all my 20s, and for them, some of their teenage years into their 20s. They're just good people. Laura's basically my sister-in-law, and Coach and Will are my 2 best friends, and Mila's just this awesome, really smart little Russian fairy.
Besides, Masterson won't be joining the cast anyway, so they might be hoping to put it all behind them.
Creators had their vision of what they wanted, and they knew all these characters in and out, and so you just kind of followed their guideline.
Well, Stephen, you don't know how to comfort people because you've never been comforted.
No, that's not true. One time, my dad felt so bad about missing my Little League game that he made up for it by disappearing for 9 years.
So there you have it. Masterson's reckoning continues, and the cast of That 70s Show seems ready to move on. Give us a like, thumbs up, and any comments below. And make sure you hit subscribe for more content like this. And we'll see you in the next one.